just 1 second. Yes, Melody's back there. We're going to start the meeting.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Park and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting for April 28th to order. And if we can start with introductions to my right, please.
Bob Burns.
Chris Cook.
Doug Mooney.
Mike Mitchell.
Joyce Gifford.
Roger Fowler-Tice.
Denise Conrad, staff.
Scott Archer, staff.
And I'm Sean Datchler, filling in for Dan Tupper as chair tonight. The first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from last month. Are there any corrections other than Joyce's emailed corrections?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Are there any citizen comments for items not on the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, then let's move to the Ladderette Park and the Girl Scout troop follow-up. Next steps. Welcome, ladies. Come on up. So as a reminder from past months, just state your name and if you're a resident of the city first and as part of your introduction, and then tell us all about your event.
My name is Lucy.
My name is Paige.
And are you a resident of
Yes.
We recently had a party in the park to inform people about like the park and that we wanted to change it. It went really well, but the weather was kind of not so great. It rained a lot, and all but one of our tents blew over, one of which fell on me. And so it wasn't that great, but we were really surprised that so many people came, even though it was raining, wet. So we were really excited about that.
So I'm Stella, and to get people's opinions on like what they wanted for the park, we gave them 4 stars to put on these boards, and we got we figured out how many people wanted what, so that we could see like the options that we had if we were going to make a park there, like what the community would want. So.
I'm Kate.
Microphone, please.
See, there's a lot of people watching on TV here, so they got to hear you with the microphone, unfortunately.
I'm Kate. I am a resident of Oregon City, and some of the things that from the charts that we took, the majority of the stars, we got 300 stars. We counted them up, and we got 300 stars on here, and that's divided by 4 is roughly 75. So we got roughly 75 people to come and actually put their.
Great.
Ladies, throughout the talking points, we do need you to speak into the microphone.
Okay, so at the party in the park, after the party in the park, actually, we counted up all the stars, and we realized that people were like leaning more towards the nature park, and like it was like most of them, it wasn't really like close. It was more like people really wanted this over the other. Yeah.
So I guess we thought we would just talk a little bit. Oh, okay. So the girls, oh yes, my name is Karen Burig, and I am a resident of Oregon City.
And I'm Heidi McKay, and a resident of Oregon City. We both live within a few blocks of Ladderette Park.
Right, and we're leaders for this Girl Scout troop. So the girls did look at 5 different things. They looked at kind of the difference between people were interested in nature play versus a traditional play structure. They looked at climbing and swings, tennis and basketball, meadow, community gardens, and open benches and picnic shelters. So really what they learned a lot about were themes. And I think kind of coming out of this, we learned about themes and that people, one, were very interested in this event. It was rainy, but people still showed up. 75 people participated, and that was a really good turnout, even though it didn't feel like a good turnout. If it was sunny, it would have been much more. But one of the things we also heard was that people were interested in seeing another kind of event that maybe when it was sunny. And while this is just kind of themes, how do we really move from themes into this is an implementation plan? So that's what we're interested in doing next. Mm-hmm. Did you want to talk about how we're hoping to do that?
You go ahead.
Oh, okay. So as you guys are probably all well aware, there are the community enhancement grants that are available through Oregon City. So we were hoping to apply for that. We did sit down with Scott Archer and kind of talked about some ideas, and it didn't seem quite ready yet to apply for something specific, and that what we wanted to do was be able to apply for some funds to be able to actually come work with the community some more, but get the end product being an implementation plan. So there's a group out there called City Repair. They work specifically with community groups and are very interested in engaging communities. They're a professional organization that's been out there for 15 plus years. They're based in Portland. And they have consultant services that they do for community groups specifically. And a couple of things, so we've been talking with them about hopefully engaging them in this project. And what that would entail is they would come out at 3 different times, working with the community, be able to have a game that's arranged in the park to talk about different things, kind of using this as a starting point, but then to kind of collect the ideas of the citizens, develop 3 different concepts, come up with kind of a final design, and then an implementation plan. So what we're hoping to do, and this would be something we could partner with them and hopefully do in the fall, if we're successful at getting, it's all contingent on whether or not we're able to get the enhancement grant, because the cost is somewhere between $2,500 and $5,000 to be able to do this. And what we're hoping to do was, as we are developing the proposal, that we're working with a kind of an expanded community group there to really hone down what that proposal is. So what we're interested in is hopefully being able to get your support for that community enhancement grant. So that's what we'll get. Any questions about both for the girls and what they learned and kind of next steps?
And just before the committee has any questions or discussion, I would just reiterate what's been said already, but I did meet with them, and we talked about those things, and that seems like the group is on a really good path to what we would recommend. The staff would recommend as a next step to consider some type of a more formal planning process versus what was done to this point is to take it to the next level, and really to answer any questions, you've got to know what the target is that you're looking at. So that's where this idea came in, and again, this troop, the young ladies and the adult leaders have done a great job of not just the event, but then the follow-up and communication has been excellent, and so I think they're on the right track with this proposal.
Doug?
A couple of questions. Am I right in saying it looked like the climbing facility was the second most starred one, or do you know?
Yeah, so this one got 79, which is the most on nature play. And yes, I do think that climbing was the second. Yeah.
So are you thinking the possibility maybe the park could be used for more than one thing out of the pictures you have there?
Yes. Well, so out of nature play, I'm sure that we could maybe add climbing into the nature play as one. So there can be more than one just specific thing.
Can we get you to reiterate that with the microphone, please?
Yeah. Do we have a hand mic? I know we do during commission meetings. I don't know if it works.
I can use this one. So there's 79, which is the nature play, which is the most. But we can also infuse the climbing with the nature play. So that then it becomes. Well, at Eastmoreland Park, they have, which is a nature park. They have lots of climbing structures that people like that kids like to play on. This picture
There you go.
specifically
It's working.
It's good.
okay,
It's good.
specifically was at the Eastmoreland Park,
Which is a nature park.
which is a nature park. So you can use both of them.
One thing, and I'm not trying to make anything complicated, but one thing, and I think you had some signage there indicating that used to be a swimming pool. It was a spring, I believe it was a spring-fed swimming pool, and the spring now flows to our stormwater sewer system, so it's not really exposed, but there might be a way, if you can find resources and support for it, that you could make a water feature, and obviously you're thinking about it too, because you're all nodding your head.
We had a few suggestions for exposing that.
And hopefully, and I think these are the type of things that show that a deeper process definitely is needed before we really are able to say, oh, we want to get an enhancement grant to build a nature play area. I mean, there's some more stuff that needs to happen, but we really did learn that there's just such interest out there for something to happen, and we really want to capture on this kind of excitement that has started.
I was going to say, I'm really excited about this because, as Heidi knows, I used to be her next-door neighbor, and I know the people in that park, in that area of the park, are very anxious to see something happen there. And boy, I'm really glad your troop has taken this on as a study project, and look forward to you seeing it through. Even it's probably going to. By the time it gets done, it probably some of you are going on be bigger scouts, but the point is you've gotten this started, and I'm really appreciative of it.
Joyce?
Just a quick raise of hands. How many of us attended this event that the Girl Scouts had?
Oh, yes, I recognize several of you from attending the event.
So there were several of us there. So you're applying for the grant. What is the deadline for that grant?
So this is the enhancement grants here in Oregon City, and so May 27th is when they're due, and then they decide early in June, but the money needs to be spent over the next year. So we'll know fairly soon if we're able to do it, and then we would be working with the city repair organization to host the event kind of probably September, October, when the weather's still good. Hopefully.
So, Sean, I move that PrAC ask staff, or is that staff would write the letter of support from us? Or
I'll second that.
Okay.
Any discussion?
For the Girl Scouts.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yeah, typically what we would do is assist writing the letter of support, but it would be signed by the chair.
Okay.
So we'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before you start.
That's
Okay.
just what I was going to say. We'll also, there's a new group, and there's, what, 3 in the room now that are, no, 4. Sorry, Dee Dee. I can't count to 4. Anyway, the Oregon City Parks Foundation. It's a newly formed foundation supporting our parks, and we will write a letter as well. If we can, I would just need to know an email address to send it to so we can get it.
All right, can
In
I,
your grant application
will I be
also.
able to get that contact from
Yeah, from Scott.
All right,
Yep.
excellent.
Just email me. And
Yep.
we'll
All right. And we've been in contact with the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. They, as you
They were
probably
there,
know,
yeah.
they were at the party in the park. It was wonderful to see them there, and we're going to be reporting back to them and also inviting them to participate further. Okay.
Great. Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
very
time.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, and thanks for having us at the beginning of the agenda.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good job.
So next on the agenda is non-smoking policy in the parks. So before this meeting, we had a work session, and I thought I'd ask Bob, if I can put you on the spot, if you could maybe summarize for the public what our discussion consisted of.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Chair.
You're pre-warned, of course.
We are very much in support of a policy, a non-smoking policy in our parks and other related facilities of Oregon City. And that would include tobacco products, e-cigarettes, smokeless tobacco, etc. And we had a good discussion, and I think one of our primary purposes was to advance the notion of healthy lifestyle, and that from that we had a good discussion about what should go into a policy. And so the staff will take it from there and prepare some language, and it'll come back to us in the near future where we can have more discussion.
Great.
Those are my comments.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add to that? Okay, let's move on to the possible relocation of the Larry Dahl Monument. So, unless you know anything current, I probably know the most current.
Kind of, but I think you've got a better idea.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
So the information I know at this point is really it started with a discussion Scott and I had about who the actual owner is and how to transfer ownership. And so that went to the museum board, and the museum board has met but has not made a decision as to what they want to do. There's several ideas floating around. One, to locate it in a different place on their property. The second would be at the southern entrance to the McLaughlin Promenade. Late last week, I actually saw an artist rendering of that, along with something that we haven't discussed here, the idea of incorporating it into a new Vietnam memorial. So if you're familiar with that southern entrance to the promenade, as you're walking north, the parking lot near the VFW starts going up, but the pathway is fairly gradual. So there's a natural wall there. And there, these drawings incorporate that memorial at kind of the pinnacle point of the beginning of the Vietnam Memorial Wall, which would include, I think it's 743 or some, I believe is the number, Oregonians killed during that war. So those are the things that are floating around now, but no decisions have been made. And I think really it's all relying on the board at the museum, and they've been very open to suggestions and kind of looking around, but they own it and it's their decision ultimately at this point. Is that kind of?
That's my understanding. Mm-hmm.
So.
Question, Sean. Is the board at the museum aware of the plans or the discussion about the memorial? The Vietnam Memorial?
Yes.
Are they aware
They
of
have
that?
been provided with
Yeah.
all of those drawings.
Yeah.
As if you were to allow it to be moved, here's a possible idea, and that's why the VFW went out and went to one of the design, kind of like the things we see when we see park drawings, one of those companies, and they actually did several work-up drawings to visualize. Looking down on the parking lot, it would possibly eliminate 2 parking spots, right where it would go. Looking down, if you're, I think of like the Riverwalk, the way they try to put kind of a drawing over an actual picture so you can kind of visualize, and they've been provided all that.
I don't know what degree of reluctance there is on the part of the board. The point is that, Larry Dahl's sacrifice is part of the history of Clackamas County, and oftentimes we don't recognize let me call it the more recent history of Clackamas County. I think it's an important one. I don't think there's any reason that their ownership could not be recognized for that at a different location than their property, and I don't know if that's been discussed, but it has been. I look, in any case, I look forward to it being put at a more prominent place than it currently is.
And I think that's the main point that everybody not associated with the museum is stating as their primary goal is we just want to bring it out from the weeds and give it its proper place wherever that may be. And so at this point, it's just a few suggestions.
Yeah.
And see where they go from there.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Sean, I've asked this before, and I think I got the answer, but I forgot what it was. Are there any family members remaining?
No.
Or friends, high school friends that he knew when he was in school here that may have an opinion or that might want to get involved in this kind of a discussion?
What I've been told is there are no known living relatives, nobody that claims a relationship. And this goes back to, I think it's 2008, there's a, and I don't mean to butcher this, but something along the lines of an Oregon War Memorial Society, and they bestowed a very large eagle monument to Larry Dahl, and I believe the Clackamas County Commissioners actually received that.
City Commissioner.
City Commissioner, okay. Were you
Yeah, I was in the mayor then, and and it was bestowed for that very reason. They could not identify a relative,
Okay.
so it was bestowed through the city.
And right now, that's in trust at the VFW on display.
And we just,
So there's been an effort, but
Yeah.
they're not. It'd be nice if somebody.
I wanted to make sure we didn't offend somebody by doing all this
Right.
conversation without touching all those
Well, and
bases.
I ran across the name Dahl and something else I saw in just the Oregonian the other day, and it just instantly started wondering. Oh, but nobody's come forward.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
So, is there a way that we could see the drawings to this?
Sure.
Or-
I don't have them yet, but when I do, I can pass them around.
And so if that's going to be like a structure they're going to build just so to mimic look like the Washington Memorial.
Yes, essentially. And there's also a smaller one up in Washington Park by the zoo. I think that the idea that I've heard floated is, first and foremost, it's the goal is to move the Dahl Memorial. But wouldn't it be nice if we could do the rest? And obviously the PRAC, the city, has not even been contacted about that idea, and it's on city property. So this is more of a private group that's looking to put up an idea and then would have to do a lot of fundraising for it.
I know we discussed this a little bit at one of our PRAC meetings, at our the Park Foundation meeting, but it was more in relation to putting plantings in at that time. But that could still be incorporated too, because that's kind of a weedy part of the park, and something, and it's hard. It's actually hard for them to maintain that, according to Jonathan and Waverly, and so I'm sure that the foundation would probably want to be involved, and we already gave a letter to support, but in actual we'd probably be willing to, if there's a volunteer action thing that would be taking place, we'd be happy to help with that too.
Great. I'll pass that on, and when I see the drawings, I will definitely pass them back on to this group. I think right now it's very much that portion of it is very much at the brainstorming stage. What could we do? What should we do? We haven't asked permission yet, that sort of thing. It's very early, ground floor. So, okay. Where are we headed next? Okay, the annual report that Dan and I are scheduled at this point to do next Wednesday. Dan and I were actually going to meet 2 nights ago and discuss it. He wasn't able to make it. We were going to discuss it tonight. That didn't work out either, and so Dan emailed me in between the work session and here suggesting that we push that out a meeting or two. So our annual report to the commission will not occur next week as scheduled.
So you need to make sure you let them know, because I know it's on their agenda.
Yeah, I'll take care
All
of
right.
that for it. It'll just simply be noted that it's going to be at a different time.
Yeah. Okay, Newell Creek Canyon Plan update.
So just a quick update for you here. As I know that obviously the committee's been following this process closely, and you've received some reports from the Metro staff and different things. The good news is that the Newell Creek Canyon Access Master Plan was adopted by the Metro Council on March 31st. In fact, they held that meeting in Oregon City at the Museum of the Territory. I attended that meeting. In fact, I spoke in support of the plan and the idea of opening the canyon for public access. So anyway, it passed unanimously with the Metro Council, and essentially that's the master plan for the site. And the next steps for Metro are essentially moving through the land use process, which is within the city. So they'll be moving through the city's planning processes, which has been initiated, and we'll be moving forward. So let's keep you posted as there's news to report. So.
Two things I wanted to bring up. One for Denise. I'm not sure if you're aware, but when the Metro staff has been here in the past, we've encouraged them to work on the play structure area, the upper level in their phase 1, as kind of a focus, because it's not really one of their more expensive pieces. So I just thought you might want to be aware that we were urging them to basically make sure the top piece is completed if there's a multi-phase to that park.
When they put the parking lot in to finish that upper part.
And the second thing that I wanted to bring up to this group and get your opinion on relates to Metro's blanket ban on dogs in all Metro Park facilities, with a few exceptions. I've been thinking this through. I've emailed our Metro representative, and while I cannot necessarily argue with a lot of strength the reasons for overturning their ban down in the trail system, I feel pretty strongly about that upper area near the parking lot as being essentially just any other Oregon City park. It's an Oregon City park that is run by a different jurisdiction. And so my thought would be that maybe we should encourage them to revisit that policy for that portion of their facility. And so then it actually is in keeping with the rest of our park facilities where dogs are allowed on leash in this normal park space, because it's not a natural area. So let me throw that out there.
I have a problem with your wording. That is a regional park. Metro bought that segment for its parking lot. It's owned by Metro, and they view it as a regional park, not an Oregon City park. They have their policies. We can make a recommendation. That's possible, but I don't want to put us at odds with the Metro regional government. They've done so much with the city, in partnership with the city, but it is not an Oregon City park.
I recognize that, but I also think it's an Oregon City asset.
I agree with you.
You know, and so, you know, I would say, does anybody else feel like that?
Well, seeing as I run my dog on that property every day, and the neighbors do too, it's kind of, you know, we've been using that because the neighbors right now keep it mowed and run our dogs down there. And I don't think we as PRAC can go to Metro and say, hey, we want dogs to be allowed on this little section. We understand, not in the canyon, not on the trails. But I think as individuals, if people are interested in wanting to be able to have their pets in that area right by the parking lot, that we should individually write to Metro and say, hey, you know, you've made exceptions on other trails. Can you please make an exception for this one too?
Bob?
I don't see why we couldn't make a polite suggestion without ruffling feathers, just to say, would you reconsider this issue, and you know, rather than trying to strong arm, make a suggestion.
I guess I would request maybe staff to check it out, or maybe the chair. We wrote a letter of to consider this. I think we have to be a little bit careful because we are not the governing body, and I think it has to be, if we're going to do that, it has to be worded in a way that even though we're a city advisory committee, this is not being written. This is not being written on the behalf of the city.
Right.
I really think Joyce's recommendation is probably the best one. I think you could say I happen to be a member of the PRAC, which you are, as part of your personal letter. But I think it's a little dangerous for a advisory committee to the city to put forward a recommendation to another body. All our recommendations should go through the commission.
Okay.
I would, if I may, sorry, just,
Yeah.
but on Doug's point, I was going to suggest exactly what Doug just suggested, to be real careful about that, just in terms of circumventing the city commission to another governmental organization that is a partner of ours. So, yeah, as a staff, I just want to also reiterate what Doug said and
So
support
before I
that.
go to Chris, let me ask you a question just for clarification. So if we were to go along those lines, what you're suggesting would be more of us making a recommendation to the city commission to consider encouraging
do that.
Metro to
We
XYZ.
could do that, and the
Okay.
city commission then would make its own decision.
Yeah, and I think that's
Yeah.
I'm just kind of looking for ideas.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, what was their reasoning for banning dogs?
Metro does not allow dogs on any of their property because it's natural area. They want to encourage natural, animals and things to be living there. So they don't want, especially dogs down in the canyon, to disturb the wildlife.
Okay.
And it's
Yeah, the
pretty
Metro
much-
Metro councilor's comment back to me was that she was actually skeptical of it until she was provided evidence, and the evidence suggested that birds and wildlife are much more apt to move, scared, scatter from a dog than a human walking down the trail. And
Okay, that helps. Thanks.
their point.
Or a mountain bike?
Right.
Different animal.
Well, that's why I thought there's a grassy area at the top. If I'm there with a picnic, maybe I can take mine. And
It is.
that was the point I was looking for.
As it happens, timing-wise, to this discussion at the last city commission meeting, our representative counselor for the Metro Council, Carlotta Collette, gave her, I think they do a quarterly or so update with each of their cities in their region. She gave a report to the city commission, just kind of a general Metro update and what's going on, and that was discussed. The Newell Creek Canyon master plan was discussed as a highlight, but then the dog issue came up, and I would just suggest, if you're interested in hearing from a Metro representative, in fact, you're our Metro representative, she does explain and answers that question as to why do they ban dogs. I think one of the city commissioners asked that question, and she explained from Metro's perspective. So if you're interested in that, it's actually near the beginning of the agenda from the last commission meeting under reports. You would be able to hear that directly.
Great. Well, I'm not looking to do anything tonight. I just wanted to kind of pull you guys. I think Doug's idea is that's the etiquette portion that I wasn't seeing.
Yeah, the thing that was, well, I think we'd get in trouble. It's more than etiquette. I think we'd get in trouble. We could invite Carlotta to come and let us speak to us. I mean, at the point we consider a recommendation we might want to put forward to the city commission, maybe it'd be just simply good policy and so forth to invite her to speak to us.
That'd be great. Yeah. We can think about that for a future date then. Newell Creek Canyon plan update. That's what we just finished. So let's go to McLaughlin Calumet Trail Planning Grant.
That was pretty smooth.
Yeah.
Let's see. Just another update for you here. The Parks and Rec Committee, you supported this. There was a staff requested a letter of support for a grant application that was being made to Metro. And happy to announce to you that last month, Metro awarded the city a grant for that project in the amount of $25,000. The goal of this project would be to complete both an interim and a final trail alignment and concept designs for the trail. So kind of a high-level design, basically routing. Again, it's basically from the mill site up through the neighborhood and eventually to the Kenema Neighborhood Park and to the Kenema Bluffs open space. To route a safe pedestrian connection through that area is the goal. The end product would be a plan that would give the city something that we could use to move forward with a final design and ultimately a trail construction as its next step. So it's a plan is what would be worked on. The city has, I think, 2 years to complete this. Working with our planning staff who actually did the application for the city of our planning department, there was some discussion, and we decided that because of some staffing transitions going on in our department, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on, but that it would be best to wait until some of that transition has happened, because our department staff will be involved in that, and who's doing what will need to be understood. So we've got plenty of time. That the delay isn't going to cause any problems or issues with it. So probably a delay of just a few months, and then the process will start. But it's good news. We did get the grant. More will be reported to the committee. There will be public involvement in this process, and you'll hear more about that later. Unless you have any questions.
Just kind of curious, usually those grants come with a match. I presume we have to provide a match. What is the nature of it?
I don't recall what the cash match was, which it was a minimal amount for this one. Most of the city's match is being put up in kind, which is our staff hours. So we've calculated the number of staff that will be working on this in my department, in planning, and some other folks, and those have been used for the majority of the city's match.
Okay.
But there's a little bit of cash that's coming from a source of funding in the city. I don't think it's going to come out of parks. So. Did somebody else have a question over here? No. Okay.
Okay. Willamette Falls Legacy Project standing update.
Pretty short update for you tonight on this one, and I think you get a lot of emails about this and receive a lot of information, but the latest is just that last month that we reported about the first big public open house for the Riverwalk design, which was a huge turnout, a big success. Since that time, the city and the partners working on the project did a virtual open house online for folks that didn't get an opportunity to attend the in-person meeting, and that has been held and done. So all that information is being kind of downloaded and will also be used as part of the public input process. So moving on to next steps, and the design process will just be continuing, and you'll continue to receive the updates about any public input opportunities.
Okay. Any other general business that we haven't discussed?
Can that be an item for the future?
Pardon?
Can we bring up an item for the possible future consideration, or that come later?
Oh, sure. Let's do that now. Future agenda items. That's next anyway.
Well, it kind of came up in our study session, but some of the trails that we have in Oregon City are not created by ordinance to be part of the park system, and that might put them at risk if somebody wants to, some future city commission wants to sell a piece of that land. I think specifically of the Clackamas River Walk that the city owns. I'd like to see that have some kind of official status to really give it a high level of protection. And I don't think any can build on it because it's in the floodplain, but in any case, and that's just an item for future discussion.
I think that'd be a great thing to.
So,
are you envisioning like a map around the city where they're showing little portions that are?
Well, I think a formal designation of that area as a park is what I'm requesting.
Well, no, I'm thinking.
But map would be fine.
I'm thinking more broad, like across the city.
Sure.
What are other properties,
Sure.
and that being one of them.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really a good agenda item.
Mm-hmm. So trails and other properties, is that what you're?
You know, I would say the properties your department maintains. I think it maintains that property along the river.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, and so in a sense, that makes it park property. So, I mean, I don't want a broad spectrum thing that brings in every piece of land that we don't necessarily have anything on, but the ones that the Parks Department is actually responsible for would be, I think, maybe the best way to approach it. But a map would be great.
Yeah, well, and like you had first said with trails too, and I'm just trying to think: are there any trails that link together that? And you always talk about walking in your neighborhood between. Are there any of those elements that I don't know of? But I mean, when we go on these park tours, it always surprises us, these little pocket parks in places we don't know. So maybe there are some. That'd be great.
Well, as a good bit of timing on that request, one of the things I was going to report to you tonight, but it links up with this, so I'll mention it now, was that one of the things that the City Commission has asked for staff to do for our department is to, there's been some issues recently that have been very public conversations that have happened about designation of parks, whether a line drawn is this a park or is not. Specifically, I'm kind of talking about the issue that has taken place with regards to Waterboard Park and where that starts and stops and where the public works yard begins and ends and so forth. And that created some discussion about the fact that our city charter talks about this, the protection of park lands, under the charter that where you have to have a vote of the people to do any changes to a park or to sell or redesignate a park, that it has to be designated a park by the city, which is, there's different ways that can take place, but what has happened over the history of, the 160-something years or whatever since we've been making parks in Oregon City is they've been designated or not designated in different ways. We've seen that as a potential liability, that we have some of our properties that are commonly referred to and certainly understood to be parks, but they're not formally designated by any process that's taken place, whereas the commission didn't pass an ordinance or a resolution saying this is a park, even though we built a park with parks money and things like that have happened. So what we have been asked to do is to bring back a list of all of the city parks so that the commission could essentially adopt that in one motion to make sure that we're covered in all of these things. So there's no question about, is Hillendale really a park because it's never been formally designated, but it's been a park forever, and we know that. That's just an example. I'm not specifically saying that there's an issue with Hillendale Park. So that ties in, I think, a little bit at least to what you're talking about, Doug. And what I was going to mention is that process will be, we're working with our GIS department to map the city's properties and basically do a boundary of each park facility. And I think that those types of things would be part of that considered discussion. And that would be something we'd want to discuss with this committee as well.
That's what I was going to say. I would think it would be probably appropriate for that to come to us first and then let us forward on a recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say that that's probably needs to happen and will happen at your next meeting. The City Commission has tentatively scheduled that topic on their June work session. Okay. Not for any formal action at that point, but just as a work session item. And that would make sense then for this committee to talk about it in the May meeting. Then it would have been discussed here, and then the commission will talk about it. So.
Bob, did you have your hand up?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was scratching my nose.
Going back to other general business, has the voting closed on the movies in the park? Because I know that has to get into the summer trail news, and I don't know what the deadline is.
I believe it is closed and the movies are selected because summer trail news, excuse me, all of that has been proofed and it's laid out.
Okay. So we might be able to look online soon, or when the trail news comes out, we'll see what movies we're going to be.
Trail news will come out in May.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Roger, I was going to go to you anyway for member reports.
Well, I still have the future agenda.
Oh, you have a future agenda item too. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you have the floor.
Thank you. Was it last week? I know Doug was there. There was the Whitewater
yeah.
project proposal.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if, for a future agenda, we should invite them to talk here.
Great idea.
As is, you know, they're kind of, after talking to a few people, they're talking about tying it in with the Riverwalk. So
That's an outstanding idea.
And Channel 6 News just did a big report on that today, so there's
There's even
links
more
that you
than-
can see. There's a nice video and some concept ideas of what they're considering for that Whitewater Park.
Well, Denise, I would just ask you maybe in the next couple meetings if you could consider that based on how the rest of the agenda looks.
Absolutely. On my list.
Awesome. Any other future agenda items? Okay, let's go to member reports, Roger.
Let's see, Pioneer Center news items. Number 1, the center classes are full. 2, Hagen's is now closed, so donations to the Pioneer Pantry will be slim for a while. If another store goes in this site, we will ask for donations. 3, parking lots are on the list to be done this late spring, early summer. And that's...
I just had one question on your report on the Hagen's and the lack of donations. Is that fairly evenly split amongst the grocery stores in the community? I just kind of gathered from that maybe they were a greater donator. than
Well, I
others.
know that they're still getting food there, so I'm sure that that's just one of the stores they get it from.
Okay.
But, I mean, it's going to lessen
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay.
whatever. Yes.
Safeway used to give
You got to...
Smile for the camera.
Dorothy Dalsred.
Your timing's perfect.
Safeway used to donate to it, and then when Albertsons purchased Safeway, they had to adopt Albertsons' practices of donation.
Okay.
So their markdowns changed in the Safeway store to mimic the same of Albertsons. So if there's an outcry, let us go to Albertsons.
Gotcha.
And then, because they gobbled up Higgins.
Right.
So Fred Meyer's is the only one left.
Great. Okay.
I'm finished.
Joyce.
Well, I want to say that Roger and I
Yes,
participated in the citywide cleanup. Would you like to say what you did at the citywide cleanup on Saturday?
Well, we worked, several of us worked on the Cove area, and there was a lot of garbage there, and we picked up, I would say, probably a dozen large garbage bags full of items to haul out of there, plus one kayak, which I don't know where that is right now.
I back to them upon post-inspection. And my dog was the perfect example why Metro doesn't let dogs, because she brought me back a robin's egg.
Thank you.
And my assignment on Saturday for the cleanup day was the planter boxes on 7th Street between Center and Dairy Queen, and pulling out all the old plants and putting in new. So appreciate those when you drive by. It was a lot easier than pulling ivy that we did in the past. The other thing is attending the Girl Scout event at Ladderette Park. I'm sorry I wasn't here last month to talk about that, but that was just really a well-planned event on their part, and despite the heavy rains, it was very well attended, and appreciate that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do with Ladderette Park in the future. And in pickleball at Hillendale, the Northwest Pickleball ambassador, at least one of them, Tom, came to the Hillendale Neighborhood Association meeting and made a presentation about the grant monies they have received about redoing the surface at Hillendale Park. So be watching for that. Stop by someday and play pickleball with them. They would love to have you join them.
Yeah, a couple things. I didn't say it when the Girl Scouts were here, but I thought it was interesting that it looked like there was very little support for tennis courts, even though we were standing on tennis courts putting the stars on things. So I think that says something. Couple of things. First, a note from the foundation, and we're ready for applause here. we received our 501c3 designation. We're official. And we're planning to have a little celebration for that. The plans are not made yet,
Sketchy.
but we'd like to have some sort of a little celebration with appropriate refreshments and such in honor of that. The only thing left to do, and I just haven't gotten the form done yet, and it's basically just to send in the form and it comes back, is we are registered as a state corporation, but not as a State of Oregon charity. So that's just another form that has to go in, and the only thing you have to do to prove it is send them your 501c3 number, which we have. So we'll have that. And then that finalizes all of the necessary documentation, so we're official. The other thing, and I don't know if it really impacts this group or whether it impacts the city, but I thought it was very interesting. I was at the Caulfield Neighborhood Association meeting Tuesday night that's held at the BCT meeting room, and there was a representative of BCT that spoke. And he talked about changes that they're making to their backyard bash this summer. They're not calling it backyard bash anymore. I forget what they're calling it. But the interesting thing is they used to collect money for a variety, or donations for a variety of charities. This year, they've zeroed that in. They're going to work very hard to raise money. There's a piece of property on South Leland Road that's owned by, I believe it's called Beaver Creek Land Trust.
Something to that effect.
40 acres. It's a large piece of property, and their intention is to raise funds to develop that into a park. It's outside the city limits, right?
Right.
So, and I don't know whether that becomes a county park or it's going to be some sort of a private park operated by who knows who, and whether or not the city or this group or has an opportunity for input. I don't know. I just thought everybody would want to know because it's a huge facility that obviously will be a benefit to the city. So
It would be interesting to know the piece of property, just thinking about how school districts and cities buy property outside of their boundaries that will be in their boundary in the future. So I don't know where it is, but do you know? Like, could you email us maybe a link to?
Yeah, I can.
I mean, if it's 10 miles out, it's not realistic.
It's
but
on
if it's
Leland Road.
close,
It's not that far out.
Yeah.
And I've run my dog on it.
Is it out the
South of
Leland past
Grandview
Wesley Lynn, or
Past-
the Leland past Grandview?
Just past Grandview.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And it's a big open piece of property.
Thank you.
Is the celebration for the foundation be on city property, and if not, can we drink? Never mind.
No and yes. In that order.
Okay.
It won't be on city property, and we will be able to drink.
Right. Two items. One is that on Arbor Day, the Great Oregon City Watershed Council had a total of 18 people showing up for a invasive removal and some tree plantings at Abernathy Creek Park. I think it was a very successful effort. That was the same day that I believe you had tree planting occurring there in Hillendale as well. The other thing I wanted to mention, on May 21st, the Clackamas Community College is having its 50th anniversary, and rather than do a tower or something else for that period of time, they are, and I may have mentioned this before, they're actually working at the Environmental Learning Center site to create a good stormwater facility, but also a very improve the natural area that's always been there as their 50th anniversary presentation to the community. That site hasn't been well maintained, and several Saturdays running there have been people out there getting rid of invasives too. And on this coming Saturday is another event. I will try to make it, but you couldn't really see the water bodies unless you were right on top of them, and now you can see them. And so it's going to be a big event on the 21st of May, and the the college is really committed to taking one of those buildings there and developing it into a good classroom facility, which has been underused in the past. So that's my announcement.
I don't have anything tonight.
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
I just have two quick things. One is I'm really excited. These are more about where the direction of PrAC is going. I'm really excited to see this smoking ban moving forward. Bob really pushed for that last year. Thank you for pushing that out into the light. It's something we need to address. I want to acknowledge you on that. And second, I want to take a minute. When I first started on PrAC in somewhere around 2002 or 2003, I went to events during Scott's interview process. So it's kind of sad to sit here as chair at Scott's last PrAC meeting. So, well, I think that we were going to discuss it later in this, but I think each of us need to be mindful of the next steps, and when they go through a hiring process, that the city should look at us for input, and we should be, able and capable and willing to provide some really good input. And we did, and that's why we got Scott last time. And I don't know what those decisions will be.
Let that be a lesson to you.
Yeah.
You're stuck with me for 12 years.
He left us. Sure abandonment. No, but I plan on sending an email to the city manager this week, offering my help when it comes time for interview process, or what are we looking for, and those sorts of things. And there's several of us that probably have some time that should, if you can, offer some support, because this is we want to get the best product next. So anyway, that's all I have for that.
Amen.
Yes.
Thanks, Sean. Ready for my staff report?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my last one to you. First of all, the recreation update. You received those distributed in writing via email as usual. Denise does those every month, and unless you had any questions, or unless Denise has anything else to add to what was already distributed.
Nothing to add other than the ADA changing rooms for the pool should be up and running this next month. So we're finishing up with Punch right now, and they look pretty darn good. So those should be online. We're hoping mid-May.
And next is just another reminder that the Wesley Lynn Park ballot measure item is, the ballots have been sent out. Most of you, all of you probably have those. On the May 17th election, we'll know the results of that vote of the community, and then next steps, and we'll see where that goes. So by the next meeting, we'll know where we're at on that, and probably have some follow-up discussion.
While we had our Parks Foundation booth at the Saturday market, we had people asking about that, which I found interesting, and we were able to, and they were kind of negative. They're getting some negative feedback from somewhere, and we were able to talk to them about it and tell them exactly what it was, what the benefit would be to the city. So it's just
thank you. Okay. Next, Denise will give you an update on the Clackamas Park boat ramp.
So in March, with the assistance of the Oregon State Marine Board, we put in a joint permit application that goes to the Department of State Lands and to the Corps of Engineers. Each entity evaluates that application and determines of whether or not they will authorize the application, and then put conditions to the application if they do authorize it. We did receive authorization and a permit from this Division of State Lands, Department of State Lands, and our conditions. We heard from the Corps of Engineers. They will provide us a decision mid-May. So at that point, once we hear that we have a decision, then we can look to the next steps, which hopefully it's an approved permit, and then we would look to try and garner the funding for our repair process that we've received through our hydrology evaluation, that we completed the evaluation portion, and we're finishing up the edits to the 30% for not the repair, but a new ramp. So we're almost complete with that project. The in-water work period stipulated by Department of State Lands is July 15th through August 31st. It is a very short window, so if we move forward, we would have to implement a bid process, selection, and right into construction. So funding, bid process, and then construction. So those are our next steps. Any questions?
Is that for the repair of the old one?
This would be the repair of the old one, which is determined to be about a 5-year fix, possibly longer, just by the nature of how we're fixing it. But it's the interim between where we are now to being able to use it to getting to a final product for a new ramp at the location a little closer to the Willamette. And that location's been determined to be in a place that would be sustainable.
Okay. Any other questions on that? So moving along, not all of these are on your agenda, so if you think I'm bouncing around or something, I always end up adding a few things from when I publish your agenda. But update on the Waterboard Park illegal tree cutting situation, just to let you know that I think we're nearing a resolution with the legal process, and some further steps have been taken recently. There's another evaluation of the damage had to be done to provide kind of an extra report to the DA. The district attorney is going to be then working through sort of what they're going to either do or not do. The city will have some decisions and discussions about that. And that's really all I can say right now, but just that we're getting close to a resolution, and when we're able to let you know, we'll certainly do that. So it's not nothing. Things are happening. It's just quiet because it's a legal process. So next, I wanted to mention the annual Parks Day event that the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee has promoted the last few years. We've done that 3 years now, I think, or something. So between your last meeting and this meeting, I had to make a quick decision. Unfortunately, this got a little bit lost in the shuffle for me from the last meeting. Potentially, I should have mentioned this to you, so I apologize. But we did need to put something together for the trail news, and we had no discussion to the contrary. So the assumption was that this is an event that we wanted to continue doing. I think the feedback last year was that it's going well, and moving it to the Friday night movie partnership, I think worked well. So unless you have any major objections, we went ahead and put that as the first Friday movie night, which is August 5th. So similar format to last year, and I think additional details can be discussed as we move a bit closer to that event. But again, that's the date. So I had to kind of we got in a time crunch on the Trail News publication, and I just went ahead and scheduled it for that date. But unfortunately, didn't have a chance to talk to the committee at the meeting. So unless we have any major concerns about that, we'll just assume that that's okay. Great.
As long as the movie's good, right? We don't want to push anybody away.
Hopefully they'll all be good. And then lastly, director transition. As you all know, I think this is my last meeting as Community Services Director with the Oregon City Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, as I've chosen to pursue another professional opportunity. And I'll be wrapping up my time with the city here in the next close to a couple weeks or so, and so basically mid-month. So I'll be around for a couple more weeks, but this is my last meeting with this committee. And I just want to, Denise is getting choked up about it. But I do want to say I've been in this position for just about 12 years, not quite. That time that Sean mentioned back when we were having a little community forum up in the second floor of the fire station just across the way over here. Still stands out vividly. I know a bunch of the PRAC members were there, and that was a good process. But anyway, so I've been here for just about 12 years, and it's been my honor and my privilege to serve the community in this position. And I think working very closely over those years with the Parks and Rec Committee, and some of you have been on this committee longer and some shorter, and some have come back for second terms, at least a couple of you. Actually, there's 3 members right now that are on their second go-round with the committee. I just realized that just now occurred to me. But which is really says a lot about the value.
I was here earlier too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're one of the folks I was thinking of. That when I say, I mean, not just a second term, but a second time with the committee after going off the committee. That's
limited twice.
That's right.
But I do want to say specifically to all of you, I thank you for your service. I thank you for being so good to work with, making my job better. The Parks and Rec Committee is so vitally important to what we do as a department and as a community. This committee, I'm biased, of course, but I think you're the best committee in the city, and you've proven yourself over and over and over again over the course of time. And I know members have changed, but it's been such a strong committee, such good advocates, and such a good cross-representation of the different things that are going on Parks and Recreation-wise in the community, and that's true with the current committee as much as it's ever been. This current committee is outstanding, and I thank you for all that you do and that you've done and that you will continue to do. I think this city's on the precipice of some pretty amazing, awesome things, be it with the Willamette Falls project or some other projects that we're working on, just a number of things. And this committee has made things better, and you've really been influential in a lot of the processes that are important to what we do. So I very much thank you for that. And again, it's been my privilege to be your Community Services Parks Director. Just a little information for you on what's going to be transpiring now. As I said, I'll be here through about the middle of the month, middle of May. Denise Conrad, formerly Kai, will be the interim Community Services Director upon my... I agree with you on that. So upon my departure, Denise will be the interim director. And then as far as the process, and Sean was talking a little bit about this a few minutes ago, but I do believe that the intention is that the city is going to open up the process to a public competitive process, and I encourage you to stay in touch about that. And again, I think Sean, you said it pretty well, but the committee here certainly would stay tuned and keep your eyes open for any opportunities for input, feedback. As we just discussed, there were in the past with department head positions, there have been opportunities for things like public meet and greets and forums and interview panels where citizens are on the panels. And so I'm not going to speak out of school because that's not my decision how the process is going to happen, but I would presume there might be some of those types of things again. And so you'll have some opportunity for input there. But in the meantime, you're going to be in very good hands. I know some of you have worked more with Denise and some less, but you'll certainly get to know her better if you don't already. And Denise knows this department very, very well, and will do a good job. And I'll be downloading all of the stuff that to make sure that she's up to speed with everything here. But she already is up to speed pretty well. But we'll make sure everything is tracking with all the future items and things that this committee will be working on. So. But again, I thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And just as an aside, Scott was one of my first bosses coming into the Parks and Recreation industry. So I worked for Westland Parks and Recreation, and I also worked for Scott at North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. So kind of our relationship has come full circle to where we've worked together twice. And we appreciated his mentorship, and he's done great things for the city and for especially the Parks Department, and creating what we have now and moving us forward. So a lot of kudos to Scott for his years of service and what the product has become in our city.
Thanks, Denise. It's a team effort, though, I have to say. I'm not going to give the big concession or, going away speech tonight, but I've worked with an awesome team of staff people as well. I was talking to you, the PrAC, committee specifically, but I couldn't say enough about Denise and Rochelle and Kathy and Jonathan Waverly and all of our staff team. Just an awesome group of folks that have done such wonderful things. So, but thank you, Denise.
Well, I'm going to suggest something that we could all give our individual things, but if I might, start us in a song. For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, which nobody can deny, which nobody can deny, which nobody can deny. He's a jolly good fellow, he's a jolly good fellow, he's a jolly good fellow, which nobody can deny.
Thank you, Doug. First off, you are not allowed to follow him again.
Thank you.
So we got that on the record now. I just want to say thank you, Scott. And I told this in the email that I sent to you that the first time that I got on PrAC was because of how welcoming you were when I came to testify before PrAC. I didn't get you to buy the parkland that I wanted you to buy, but your welcoming attitude got me started on this for good or bad, I guess. But just thank you for everything you've done, and somebody's going to have huge shoes to fill. We're going to miss you.
Mike. Thanks.
I was going to make an observation. It's only 8:15. Your wife's not expecting you back until 9. Can we all take you out? Can we all take you out?
I would be happy to. I like that idea. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you, Scott, and well wishes in your new job. Denise, we're here to support you. Let us know what else we can do.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's one other thing. I really appreciate people from the public coming out and participating and so forth. So I'm really pleased to see people from the public here at these meetings.
I agree. Thank you, everyone. This meeting's adjourned.